Dearly beloved, and those that are just here for the food, it's cool. Most of the cousins are vegan, and Jerry can't have corn anymore, so get after those elotes. The whole world is wild at heart and weird on top. You got a lot of crazy ideas, humans. Things that make sense, things that don't, stuff that kind of does, but you really have to think about it, and shit that I think is awesome. But if there's one thing you got going on this planet that I would recommend to anything from out of your world or in the next, some aliens won't dig the drinks, probably maybe the weed, who knows. But if there's certainty to anything in this wild weirdness that is existence, I would put money down that they would dig the coffee. It's an odd concept, coffee, because it's beans. It's not like tea, which tastes like leaves, tastes like earth, tastes like nature, the florals, the petrichor. Coffee, though, has a flavor all its own. Sour, sweet, bitter, smoky, like a dark chocolate campfire. And that comes from beans that aren't even beans. They're seeds from a fruit. The coffea plant is technically a shrub, which is a small tree that's native to Africa and Asia. According to the legend, 'twas the 9th century in your mortal world when a young goat herder named Caldi was tending to his flock one day. Or night, I don't know, this is a legend, which means it's fun, just go with it. Deep in the land of Ethiopia, noticed they were acting peculiar, stranger than most goats, dancing with an energy not unlike a crazy toddler after the 3rd juice pop you told them not to have. He found that his goats were eating red berries from a tree. He guessed he didn't remember the tree. He never saw it. A wizard put it there. Fuck whatever. It's a legend. Caldi figured if it was good enough for his goats, it's probably good enough for him, and he tried some himself, and to his amazed astonishment, the berries made the world clearer, brighter. He could hear farther, recognize faces faster, and remember what he was doing in the morning. He brought them to an Islamic monk in a Sufi monastery, but he scoffed he did, and threw them into the fire, which stunned them both, for out of the flames came a rich, robust, full-bodied aroma, with notes of cinnamon and bike tires. And they all figured, well, if it's good enough for the goats and the fire, I guess we should brew tea from that whole experience, and coffee was born. So saith the legend, and the legend it probably is, because there's no way anyone would willingly eat anything that made a goat go crazy. Goats are already crazy. If anything, you want to chill those fuckers out. And now here, in the now, coffee is everywhere. The U.S. alone imports in excess of 4 billion in coffee a year, which is good because Americans drink 400 million cups per year. Coffee keeping this whole world wild. I need coffee. Coffee keeping this whole world wild at heart and itself being weird on top. And you know who loved coffee? This guy, David Lynch. David Keith Lynch, born January 20th, 1946 in Missoula, Montana, loved himself a cup of the hot beans. He said he drank 20 a day and never after 5:30 at night. He loved cappuccinos mostly. But as he once said, quote, even a bad cup of coffee is better than no coffee at all. When asked in essence what's in a cup of coffee for you, David Lynch once said, a good friend. And judging by how much he drank, it was more than friendship. Growing up, David Lynch studied painting, used to draw at an early age, got inspired by a friend's father who was a painter, decided he wanted to go to college for it, and ended up at Corcoran School for the Arts and Design in Washington, D.C., before transferring in 1964 to the School of Museum of Fine Arts in Boston with his roommate, musician Peter Wolf from the Jay Giles Band. But that's where it changes, as so things often do in human colleges. Quote, I was not inspired at all in that place. And he went on to travel to Europe with Jack Fisk, who would go on to production design There Will Be Blood, The Revenant, and Killers of the Flower Moon. They only spent 2 weeks there, though. They decided to come back and go to the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts. Quote, in Philadelphia, there were great and serious painters, and everybody was inspiring one another, and it was a beautiful time. But something must have gone down, because later in life, David Lynch said in an interview, quote, I've said many, many, many unkind things about Philadelphia, and I meant every one. I don't know what the beef was. It's odd to think there would be any beef, because David Lynch was known for his Ned Flanders-esque Pleasantville Wonder Bread and cheddar cheese kindness and suburban simplicity. Weird on top for sure. But if you ever got to see what David Lynch would go on to do next, you would be surprised to find that he was wild at heart. His first film was called 6 Men Getting Sick 6 Times. He made it for $150, and he did it because he wanted to see his paintings move. And so he did. And then he sent it to a police siren for 3 minutes. I told you it was going to be wild and also weird. After that, he's hooked. He moves to L.A. He works out a 21-page script planned to be 42 minutes, ended up being 89 minutes, produced it with some of his pals, one of whom was Sissy Spacek, just so you know, in case you wonder who we're playing with here. He shoots it for $10,000 from the AFI and a loan from his pops, and he financed the rest of the movie from his paper route, delivering the Wall Street Journal. The guy was a cartoonish level of wholesome. He made Ron Howard look like an absolute dickwit. March 9th, 1977, the movie entitled Eraserhead, released to a screening of 25 people. One critic called it a sickening bad taste exercise. But it gets popular at the Cinema Village because they ran it at midnight. And along with Night of the Living Dead, El Topo, The Harder They Come, and the Rocky Horror Picture Show, they created the midnight movie phenomenon we all, including us birds, stay up for. And that's a big deal because we have to get up early. Because there's something about that. Something hot and dark about it. Something mystical and cinnamony. Something to drink coffee about. Eraserhead is a big old strange underground midnight movie hit. Mel Brooks caught it. Afterwards, he hugged David Lynch saying, quote, "You're a madman. I love it. You're in." Mel Brooks also said of David Lynch that he was, quote, Jimmy Stewart from Mars. After that, he made The Elephant Man with Anthony Hopkins and John Hurt. Ask your film professor. They'd be happy to screen it for you. And then, a little hairdo named George Lucas asks him to direct the third movie in his Star Wars trilogy, which I guess was just a big fucking lie he told for like 40 years, because they haven't stopped making Star Wars movies. I don't think they physically can. It's baked into the fabric of time. If you stop, it might rip a fucking hole in the world. I can't even get through this without talking about Star Wars, which we're not gonna do. And neither did David Lynch, because he said, quote, he had next door to zero interest in getting after that Jedi money. Instead, he goes on to direct Dune. And if you have not seen David Lynch's Dune, then I do know what to tell you. Patrick Stewart has a pug in it. What more do you want? From there, David Lynch cemented his vibe and he goes on to direct 108 movies, all of which you kind of just have to go with, like life. Quote, I don't think that people accept the fact that life doesn't make sense. I think it makes people terribly uncomfortable. It seems like religion and myth were invented against that, to try to make sense of it. And to make sense out of David Lynch, it's gonna wreck you, because he really didn't make movies. He pulled ideas off of a tree for us to snack on and get a jolt from, like a goat herder from Legend, just discovering what these berries can do, roasting the seeds and delivering it hot and black like midnight on a moonless night, creating icons of American cinema and meme material for eternity. Blue Velvet, Lost Highway, Mulholland Drive, The Straight Story. That's the one you can watch with your mom. It's great. It's about as threatening as cherry pie. But it was in 1990 that Lynch made his finest cup. So damn fine it'll kill you. At the time, Mark Frost had been working on Hill Street Blues, ask your dad, and he was paired up with this wacky David Lynch guy for a Marilyn Monroe epic called Venus Descending. But it didn't work out. Lynch's agent takes him to a diner, pitches him a TV show about American towns. Lynch picks the berry, talks to Frost, who's used to doing long-form cop stuff. Together they come up with a show called North Dakota, which was as advertised. Then, because there wasn't enough forest and mountains in North Dakota, they renamed it Northwest Passage and set it in a lumber town in the Pacific Northwest, specifically Washington, having a vision of a body washed up on the shore of a lake wrapped in plastic, inspired by the real-life murder and mystery of Hazel Irene Drew, except they wanted to call her Laura Palmer. And on April 8th, 1990, Twin Peaks premiered. And if you know, you know, the owls are not what they seem. David Lynch did not make art. He brewed it, hot and dark and mysterious and funny and deep, but never so much you couldn't afford it. You could get one in the lobby of a hotel, the diner on the side of the road, at home in the morning, whatever and wherever it could be made. His visions and poems and songs, and then this one time, this period of his life where he just gave the weather report, at heart, were wild. Weird on its face, but only to those who never had to walk through life feeling a little different. He made stuff for the daydreamers and people who like getting lost in the woods, humans who like to drink in a haunted bar with a talking bird. And on January 15th, 2025, he left this physical plane that he never really existed on anyway, so it wasn't that big a trip. But that just means we're gonna have to keep on being weird and dreamy while he is out there in the dark trees that blow, baby, in the breeze, in the branches that blow, under the sycamore trees. This world is wild and it's weird on top, so be kind, be blissful, and have a nice cup of coffee. Thank you.
Oh, wow! Chad the Third! Wow, the truth has been spoken yet again.
Nailed it.